if you're not really listening, then that is going to create a problem. It's her problem if she's comparing you to a woman and she's not telling you and she's expecting you to just know how to romance her or take out the trash.
If he doesn't respond to these things, he doesn't love you. It's true, because if that does not engender a response in a man's heart, then he doesn't love you.
Okay.
Then you need to leave because he doesn't love you. There's something core to them that it represents who they are. And when you don't realize that and you confront them in that way, then you're not going to get a man to compromise who he is.
When women get disappointed by comparing men to hairy women, that is something that they can't really fault a man for.
Right.
But when a woman does tell a man what she needs or, you know, uses the words and he still doesn't do it, then that is on him. And that will cause her to not trust him and to not respect him if he does not. Because I also want men to understand that if a woman is doing these things and you're still letting her down, or you're not doing them, you're not listening, like, it's not saying it has to be perfect, but if you're not really listening, then that is going to create a problem. Like, it's her problem if she's comparing you to a woman and she's not telling you and she's expecting you to just know how to romance her or whatever, or take out the trash because it's overflowing. Like, that's on her. But if she's like, hey, I need you to take out the trash because that would just provide me the ability to feel feminine and, you know, focus on cooking a nice meal for you and our family, and, you know, does it in the proper way, and you still choose to not do it, then you can't really blame it on your singular focus or the things that, you know, make a man feel good. Like, and again, I'm not saying if he misses like a day, it's not the end of the world.
But if
but like, women also have to feel like if she does these things, it's going to make a difference.
If he doesn't respond to these things, he doesn't love you. That's it.
Whoa.
It's true, because if that does not engender a response in a man's heart, then he doesn't love you.
Okay.
Then you need to leave because he doesn't love you.
Okay. That's good. I mean, like, no, I'm just saying
it's true, because
that's a good hard truth.
If you love a woman and she's telling you something that would make her happy, or that ways that you can provide for her, ways that you can make her feel good, and she's giving you that and doing it in the right way, and that does not compel you to want to do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. But if you don't feel like it, then that's also not the woman for you. You don't love that woman because it should. You should feel like, I want to be this woman's hero.
Right.
If you don't feel like that, then it's not the right woman, or you don't love her. You know, he doesn't love you. So,
I wanted to bring that up because I do think that's important, because I'm sure there's some people that feel like, does my man even want to be my hero? Like, and a lot of it is probably you emasculated him and he does, but you've never given him the chance. But some of it might be that he doesn't want to be her hero.
Right. Exactly. And the key too also is to not use this to manipulate men, because there is actually an instance in the book, and she cautions against it a lot in the book, but there's an instance where one woman in the book uses it to emasculate her husband.
Right.
But
she uses it to like lure him in, and he's like, oh, I finally get to like, you know, make her feel happy, and then she just like twists it and stabs him with it.
Exactly. She's like, if you took out the trash, it would provide for me you not being a lazy son of a bitch or whatever. And it's like, now you've used that word,
right?
And now you're never going to get that back, because now he's been hurt by that and emasculated by it.
Well, now he can't trust you.
Right. Exactly.
Like, you found out the thing that would make him happy and you used it against him.
Yeah. I think another big thing was understanding the value of a man's opinion to him, versus women have opinions that are just opinions, but a man's opinion is him. It represents who he is.
That also made a lot of sense. But also at the same time, I would like you to talk more about that, because she mentioned it and it makes sense when I read it.
Yeah.
seeing how you can get with your opinions, and if I don't agree with your opinions, and then reading her talk about women are listening to opinions to agree or disagree with opinions, and how opinions are different for men. And so I'm curious on your perspective more about you feeling like your opinions are who you are and why that is the way that it is. Because I do feel like you said, to women, opinions are more like they're constantly can change. Women change their opinions a lot based on their emotions.
Right.
And so we don't associate our opinions. Well, besides maybe like we talked about with the love is blind thing, right? Like that's kind of like identifying your opinions as who you are. But I don't feel like men do it in that way, but maybe sometimes they do actually. Like it's more of like an attack on his character when you're just talking about opinions. And so I'm curious from your perspective, like how that happens and why, and just more detail about that.
Yeah. So I think, well, like what you're saying with the love is blind thing, with those opinions, they're not well-researched opinions. They're opinions that someone's decided to hold on to because it feels good. Whereas I think a man looks at, for me, for instance, my opinions are things that I have deeply researched, that I have spent hours philosophizing in my mind, that I have looked at data and facts, and they didn't come lightly. They represent, they're based off of my value systems and my core beliefs and who I am as a man, my principles. And so that's why they carry just as much weight as anything to me, right? So to reject, make fun of, not see the wisdom in my opinions, to me is just a complete rejection of myself. It's the worst thing that you can do. Like you're saying that you don't value me at all is how I perceive it, because it's so much of a part of how it's not something that's just like we talked about in the other book about how a woman will change her emotional state. You said like an EKG. A man does not, and it's the same thing with opinions. A woman might change her opinions based on how she feels, or some piece of information tugs on her heartstrings, so now she's over here, and and whereas as a man, it's like, these are my principles. This is what I have come to understand and believe about this world, and I'm the one who's supposed to be leading and guiding. And so if you reject my opinion, my counsel, my wisdom on the subject, then how am I leading you? How do you trust me? How can I, it calls into question all that. So that's why it becomes this huge crisis situation for a man when his opinion is not respected, when it's treated lightly, because it represents, at least for me, for all of those things.
What happens when you get new information that might change your opinion, though?
Then hopefully, I mean, myself, I can speak for myself, is that then I alter my opinion. There's so many things that I have changed my entire view in life. One of them being love. One of them being how a man should act, how a man should, I remember the first time I read How to Win Friends and Influence People. Before I read that book, I was all about consequences, like that criticism. You shouldn't give people praise. You should give them criticism. That's what I believe. I was like, why should you give people praise? Like, don't coddle them. Give them criticism. Like, tell them what's wrong. Like, you need to be able to handle this. And then after I read that book, I realized that, no, that's actually wrong. You never, ever are going to correct someone's behavior by criticism. No one ever believes that they're wrong.
But what about men? You just said telling them that they're stop being a little bitch helps.
That praise. Well, but that's different, because it's not meant in a critical nature, even though those are critical words, right? It's actually uplifting.
This is a man language that I will never be able to understand, I guess. Thing,
because as another man, we see it in each other's eyes that stop being a bitch, right? Yeah, because that's
so you can see it in your eyes, whether it's a loving stop being a little bitch, or
you could tell a man in a very harsh way to stop being a little bitch, someone who's not your bro, and that it's a different thing at that point. But what I'm saying is, so that shifted my opinion on that. That's just one example. There's so many examples in life. So, but I realize that not all men are. Sometimes men can be stubborn and a lot of men are not like that, and they don't listen to. I mean, we
Yeah.
hear it all the time in our comment section of guys that will not be convinced of their. But even those guys, they're still believing something. Like they're still. That's why these guys are so about their crazy factions of the manosphere or whatever, is because there's something core to them that it represents who they are. And when you don't realize that and you confront them in that way, then you're not going to get a man to compromise who he is. You can convince him with new information, but you have to respect his current opinion in order to give him new information. If you don't have respect for his current opinion, you don't have respect for him, he's not going to listen to you. Even the guy the famous Facebook guy that's now my friend who's in the Philippines, I had to respect his opinion first. And then he listened to me, and then he became my friend. Even though he started off with F you and all this.
Well, in the book too, she talks about using men's opinion, not to agree or disagree, but to figure out what kind of man he is.
Yeah.
And that can be hard, especially if his opinions are very like abrasive and negative, like the guys in the comment section, like you said. It would be very hard to like try to dig in there and be like, what is this core thing that he means? And you can ask him, you know, like, why do you feel this way? And you'll probably get to what the actual thing is. But like you said, I think it's important for women to not be listening to a man's opinion to agree or disagree, to kind of like turn that part of your brain off.
Right.
And instead listen to what he has to say. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It doesn't mean any of those things, but to try to figure out what his opinion means about him.
Right.
And especially if you're dating, that's, I feel like, important to figure out if you want to be with this person or not. Like, I'm not saying like in the term of like the Love is Blind situation, but like a man's opinion will tell you a lot about who he is.
Right. His like why? Because take like a divisive example, like from the whatchamacallit show. Like let's take the Black Lives Matter thing, right? And if he's like, no, I don't like it, this is why, and this is right. But you can have different, like you might not agree with that, you might have a different perspective on it. But if you listen to why he's saying what he's saying, right? Whether you had initially agreed or not, or you do eventually agree or whatever, you can see where is he coming from. Is he coming from a place where he's like, oh, these people are stupid, they're dumb, they're retards or whatever? Is he saying stuff like that? Okay, you know what his character is based on that. If he's saying, look, I feel like they're fraudulently representing this, it's not accurate, like all people should be treated equally. Okay, you might disagree, that's fine, but now you understand where he's coming from, and that is his core value that he's telling you. So that's where I'm saying is like in the other episode too, is that it's like, don't worry about these little pieces of things. Understand where. In fact, you know, the best book on this is actually Nonviolent Communication. So Nonviolent Communication, his whole strategy is to get to someone's being abrasive. They're saying kind of stuff that's a little off color sometimes even. It's like, well, what's the deeper thing behind that? What's some need that's behind that, that's creating that emotion that they're really trying to, what are they scared of? What is it? You know what I mean? And that's what, if you dig down to that, then you see what they're really about.
Right.
But